As an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger.
The FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. We are all examples of that.
Joining us now are Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
FBI whistleblowers Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle both join us now. Gentlemen, so glad to have you on the program. Thank you for your testimony.
We need more folks like you, and I'm sure more people going to be from your background are going to be giving you guys more intel as you're sharing that with the rest of us. We can kind of see that this is becoming normal for them to be held accountable, because I think especially an institution that we pay their salaries, they need to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people do share our beliefs and convictions. I think they just aren't at the point that Steve and I and others have gotten to. They're too afraid.
Thank you so much for being a guest here on PBD Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How big is that bloody flag that Steve's got? It's the stole wall of his house. Lots of love, guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle, thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for speaking out. We appreciate it.
You're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast. Back in the swing of things after a hiatus. We had to do a rerun on Thursday due to a scheduling conflict, but we're back now, better than ever. This time we're really ticked off. But we're glad to have you with us here on a Saturday. Saturday is always the best episodes of the American Radicals Podcast. Rumble.com/amradpod is where you can find us at Rumble. If you do, make sure that you smash the thumbs up and follow the program. If you listen to the podcast, which we put out on iTunes and Spotify and iHeart, all of those streaming platforms, make sure you subscribe so you can get the updates, which we give to you typically Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Saturday being a little bit longer, starting at noontime, not really under the time crunch, no 59-minute rule that we normally have on Tuesday and Thursday. So Saturdays are always our favorite day. So I could think of no better way than returning on a Saturday. And I could think of no better topic than the one we're going to talk about today, because I don't know if you've noticed, but Garrett has a couple of catchphrases. I mean, mostly they're references to the Bible, but he does like to say the alleged land of the free, which is the topic that we're going to be talking about today. Is America free or just allegedly free? Got a lot of examples we're going to talk about and see maybe if there is a perception of freedom that is not there. And I could think of no one better to have this conversation with than my partner, Garrett. You can find him at GOB Actual. And I'm really on a mission today to get the Garrett O'Boyle meter to boil over in record time to make up for lost time that we had Thursday. But as always, glad to have you along. Hoping that your weekend's going well, my friend.
Glad to be here, and yeah, going fine so far. It's a little chilly in these parts though already. I was taking the garbage out last night, and I was like, really? It's over already? Summer? It's gone? It sure is. We're supposed to get a little warm up next week, but it won't be warm at night or in the morning. And I do love the fall, but man, I like summer. I miss it. I miss it already. And I bet it's like where we were.
I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem in the free state of Florida. I mean, we did get a little bit of a cold spell. It was 74 this morning rather than 78. So that necessitated me, I don't know, maybe wearing one of my warmer tank tops, but I was still stripped down as much as I possibly could in the dark. The sun hadn't even come up yet.
I think the high here, like midday, was like 64 yesterday.
We got to fix this problem. We got to get you down here to the Sunshine State. Look at the smooth skin. They love to comment in the chat about the Steve Friend, the real Steve Friend smooth skin. I can attribute it all to the Florida Sunshine in the Sunshine State, which was such a power move in the state of Florida because South Dakota was the Sunshine State, and we said nope, we're going to flex here, and we took it from them. And now they had to resort to their Mount Rushmore or something like that. But Florida for the win yet again. But the question today is America really winning? Are we free? Are we allegedly free? And recently we were talking about another issue, and I brought in a piece from the Brownstone Institute, and it occurred to me that I didn't really establish their bona fides. I just kind of like pulled a piece from them, and it's really pretty good. So I have a piece to sort of originate from them today, but I thought it was sort of important to establish who they are. Is this just like some random blogger, or are they an actual a nice establishment with a long track record of a commitment to freedom and free enterprise and whatnot? So I'll just throw this out there before we start. Who is the Brownstone Institute, since it's the centerpiece for the conversation today? And Brownstone is a 501c3. They were founded a couple years ago, 2021. The vision is of a society that places the highest value on the voluntary interaction of individuals and groups while minimizing the use of violence and force, including that which is exercised by public or private authority. So it seems like a free enterprise type of focused organization. And they've put out a bunch of different pieces that we've referenced before, and we'll go straight to it today. And this is sort of a language issue, which we love to sort of play with, because the name of the piece is "This is not capitalism." But in reading through it, and I think the points I want to make, capitalism to me is like a stand-in for general freedom, very much like the left uses democracy as a general stand-in for communism. But I think that it's a more apropos comparison, with capitalism being free exchange of goods and services, and both parties get something for what they input, and they both wind up saying thank you because one provided a good that the other person thought was worth paying for, and they both felt like they profited from that experience. So I think capitalism is a nice stand-in for freedom in general, and we'll go to the points here to set the baseline for what we're seeing today. So the commentary here, and the writer, his name is Jeffrey Tucker, and also a good follow on social media. I would suggest you all check him out. But a couple bullet points. Governments have become a main customer of tech and media platforms, resulting in surveillance and propaganda and censorship. And I can think of no better example than coronavirus. Stop me at any point if you want to interject here, Garrett. Uh, Second point, U.S. has a medical cartel that works with regulatory agencies and official institutions to impose poisons on the public, charge outrageous prices, cooperate with business cartels to block alternatives, and promote addiction and ill health. And I think it's kind of a long-standing statement that's pretty accurate, that we don't really have health care in this country. We have sick care. We just find a malady and then a way that we can always treat it to just keep you on the hook. It's like a drug dealer and the addict. You keep them coming back for more. You don't want them to actually get cured. We don't offer cures anymore. The US has an education system, which we covered down on more extensively recently, that is mostly government funded. It blocks competition, forces participation, wastes the student's time, pushes a political agenda of compliance and indoctrination. The agricultural subsidies, because you're in the Midwest, Garrett, I think there's a nice farming community there. So the
Of
subsidies that
course.
are attached to that, they build vast industries that crush small farms and capture the regulatory apparatus and voice bad foods on the public, because you can't be a Mennonite and have raw milk anymore. That's could put you in prison, I guess, if you try to do that in Pennsylvania, the way that they regulate that. A wildly complicated and confiscatory tax system. And this one blew my mind. Depending on how you count them, there are now 20 or more possibly federal taxes that we're all subject to after the passage of the initial federal income tax. The courts invite extortionist litigation, which can only be fought with deep pockets because the Department of Justice has unlimited funds. And even the richest amongst us, I don't know, like a billionaire who was once the president, have limited resources that they're able to fight back with. And it's really a question of do they have their man, and do they want to attach a crime to him? No authentic property rights, because you might have a non-essential business that has to be shut down and you have to stay home and stay safe, even though you have to feed your family. So wait on your stimmy check. And then a bloated federal budget that supports 420 agencies in total. It's over 3 million employees in the federal government. So that's the list. Not really capitalism. I think it's more of a freedom issue. That's just why I wanted to bring it. A
Yeah,
lot of
I
things
mean,
to throw at you. Anything jump
I
out?
I know, it's like this whole time you're going down the system, I'm like, "Okay, where do I take this?" Because
Check,
there's
check.
so
Yeah.
much. I guess I will go to America's Dairyland because you mentioned Florida, the Sunshine State, stealing it from South Dakota, but I think Wisconsin, I don't think we stole it from anybody. I think it's just always been America's Dairyland. But even here, because I remember when I was a cop here, one of our dispatchers, her husband, well, I guess her too, but her husband, he was a dairy farmer, and I would ask her for raw milk. I'd be like, I'll pay for it. And she's like, I can't accept payment. I can't accept payment for it. I can only give it as a gift or I can only give it away because of the laws. And it's like, even that, Steve, why would the government care if her and her family as dairy farmers and me as a private citizen, why would they care if we want to do a transaction where I buy raw milk from her, but no, it's against the law to do that even in America's Dairyland because the risks are so high. Oh, from what? Because for the vast majority of human history that they figured out that cow's milk tastes good. We haven't had it pasteurized, but the government's going to intervene. And I guess part of the reason it's on my head, or on my mind, I just saw a short on YouTube, like I think yesterday, from this guy named Paul Saladino. He's a doctor. He was kind of like a carnivore guy. Now he's more like meat based, but he's all about raw dairy, and he's popping up studies on the screen about how raw dairy can help issues like asthma, which you and I both have, eczema, and all sorts of these. And he's like, look, here's the science, but the government is going to regulate it and it's going to intervene. And then again, it goes back to the deep pockets. I remember, I think I mentioned it before. It's called Illegal Everything. It's a John Stossel, like special that I don't know. It's got to be 15 years old by now, at least, and they show a raid of a dairy farm in there. And you got armed federal agents going in and not only seizing products, but destroying them. And it's like, that, that really doesn't seem like the land of the free to me.
Well, it's clearly big milk that's involved with the government, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I say that it's sort of tongue in cheek, but it's true. I mean, you have big farm that is contributing the lobby to Congress members, and they pass legislation that basically bequeaths power to the regulatory agencies, so the Congress people can say, "Hey, it's not us; it's just the regulatory agencies, and we're going to defer to their expertise. We have to trust the experts on this." And they pass regulations that have, in effect, the power of law, and it benefits these large industries because then you can't engage in a transaction with that dispatcher for a product that you want, need, and desire, and she has, and you would both mutually benefit from it. Instead, you have to go over to Walmart and buy the milk that's approved, stamped with approval by a government employee who's not interested really in your health. They just want to get their government paycheck, right? And that's not really in the interest of freedom or in the interest of free enterprise. And the one that struck out to me that I think we're going to go into next was the government collusion and being the biggest customer of tech. I mean, 3 million people, they're buying them all cell phones. They all have computer systems and the accompanying software. So they are just, by virtue of the fact that there are so many people that they're accommodating with, they're going to be the biggest contract. I mean, do you remember in the FBI when they put out the bid for being a cell phone provider to the FBI?
Oh yeah.
And it was everybody was with Verizon. Verizon was who we were with. And then I believe, wasn't it AT&T or Sprint or somebody that sued and said, well, we actually came in with a lower bid, and it's now going to cost the FBI more to move us all over. But because once we get into that, it'll be, I guess, technically less, then we have to do it. We're required to do it. So we all had to switch over, and then the service was terrible. But that's because of just 40,000 employees, 14,000 agents. That's a big account. AT&T was willing to fight for it.
For sure.
And then because of that relationship, and then we've talked about before how there's this weird symbiotic and gross symbiotic relationship where agents will retire and then go to work for these corporations. So they mutually benefit. They want to make each other look really good because the agent's really not qualified for the job, but they have the resume, and they pull back from the Rolodex of their old contacts that they used to work with. And, we can skip around the subpoena process. That search warrant, really not necessary. Let me just turn it over to you. We're going to work well here. And this is all set up for the fact that now the government feels like we can regulate speech on the internet. I mean, we've talked about, and I think we'll get into a little bit more, They can say foreign malign influence, but it's beyond the legitimacy of a Russia infiltration in the election, right? We're definitely not playing that back again for the third straight election. And when it lost in 2016, they said, yeah, it was Russia, Russia, Russia. They said it for 2020, but they won. So then it was the safest and most secure election. We're not going to talk about Russia. And now we're just setting it again in 2024. But this one jumped out to me, and it's sort of funny because our thumbnail today has the Kamalamanism, the face of it, on there. And there is a push now to regulate AI grok images that are coming out. And you've gotten better at it because you're doing our thumbnails. And I saw this from Modernity. Democrats trying to censor AI created memes before the election. And for those listening, it's a picture of Kamala Harris riding a rooster, which I'm sorry if that offends your sensibilities. Sorry, not sorry. It's just funny. But the article says, ahead of the election in November, Democrats in the House are attempting to have the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, issue rules to enable censorship of images created specifically by Grok because they don't like Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
In a statement, Democrats in Congress claim, quote, it is critical for our democracy that this be promptly addressed, noting the degree to which Grok 2 has already been used to distribute fake content regarding the 2024 presidential election. Fact check, false. Kamala Harris has never ridden a rooster. What sort of freedoms do you think the government believes we have as it pertains to, I don't know, creating images? Very much like a cartoonist. You know, the newspaper cartoonists that do the political cartoons. What's the difference?
They spent a little more time to draw it. I mean, like, I this is. I mean, it seems like we beat the First Amendment horse. We've beat that horse to death, I think, or just about. It's on its last leg,
We
literally.
beat it hard. We brought it back to life because it was actually rendered CPR. It was chest compressions.
Yeah, but I mean, how many times have we said compelled speech? The compelled speech doctrine. You can go back and listen to our First Amendment episodes, or just listen because it comes up so much because the government actually doesn't think you have any rights. They want to trample over all of them. Which, like, if you look at today's thumbnail, when Steve told me the idea for it, I was like, okay, I'll come up with something, And as you and I use Grok, and I use Kriya, and I kind of go back and forth, or I combine them, and I'm like punching in prompts. I couldn't draw that. I could never draw that. Okay, I'm not an artist in that fashion. But since I've been suspended, I've learned how to use GIMP, which is like a free version of Adobe. I forget what Adobe's is. Whatever. So I'm learning how to use all these things, and to design like the t-shirts, the hats, like pretty much anything you'll see on our merch was designed by me. The thumbnails, you know, I, I don't know if you call that art. Maybe you don't, but nonetheless, the government can't inhibit inhibit you from that. And now it's just crazy. So they're going to come out and try to punish specifically Elon Musk and Twitter for what? For images that people can render because of AI? Like, I mean, I certainly think there could be, not even could. I think there is a danger to AI. But okay, so be it. Like, I would always choose dangerous freedom. And even in this context, it's like, well, it's not really that dangerous then, or at least not yet. But I'd always choose the dangerous freedom over the peaceful slavery, even if that means I'm going to be duped at some point. Like the image you showed of Comrade Kamala riding the turkey or the chicken or whatever. Okay, I know that one's not real. There's some out there, whether it's voice modulators coming out or whatever
Deep
else.
fakes.
Yeah, where you really can't. You're already getting to a point where you can't hardly tell, and I'm sure people even older than our generation are already there, and maybe people behind us are like, you can tell that that's fake. But just like with the advent of the internet, this is just a new piece of technology, and the government always just wants to limit what you can and can't do, and it just, I don't know, it drives me bananas, dude. Like, I it just, I, it's so unacceptable in your alleged land of the free for the government to even think that they can come in and try to shut down one specific instance of this.
Let me make the strongest case in their favor and then obliterate it. All right. The strongest case in favor of the fact that there is a gullible American population. And again, that's on you. But let's just say that we're a benign and benevolent despot. We're the government and we're here to help. And I can look all the way back to 2008. I've referenced this before. Tina Fey did an actual impression of Sarah Palin. It wasn't a deep fake. It was a Saturday Night Live skit and did a really good job. There are still people in this country almost 2 decades later that think Sarah Palin said, "I can see Russia from my house." And it was a laugh line from Saturday Night Live by an actress posing as Sarah Palin. So then the cautionary tale was, well, what could AI do with these voice generators and the deep fakes? We could completely fool the American people. And now let me obliterate that argument. You're making the case that this tool, because it can be used for that, has to be regulated and completely limited. Well, because a 14-year-old kid can take an AR-15 and go and shoot a school, we have to censor or seize guns, right? This isn't a hunting issue. This isn't a self-protection issue. This is a safety issue. We're just doing this for your own good. So we're going to take away all the guns. It's no different. And we need a Second Amendment, not for hunting, not for home defense, but to prevent the government from coming to your door and blasting you in the face. Just like we need a First Amendment to be able to tell when the government is doing these things to the American people. And it's on the American people to use the tool to be responsible and do their own homework. Because I'm sorry, citizenship is not a leisure pursuit. Are there dirtbags out there that pass around information that's false and misleading because they just want to get their own political priorities pushed through? Yes. Are there dirtbags out there that just do it because they like to sow chaos because they're the Joker from the Dark Knight? Yes, absolutely. But just because a tool can be used for ill doesn't mean that that tool in itself is evil. It's always the person. It's never the inanimate object that's capable of sending a projectile at a high rate of speed or capable of creating an image of a presidential candidate riding on a chicken.
Yeah, Steve, you talk about deep fakes and government, and they want to limit our ability to do it. And it made me think of this. I saw a video of this woman recently. Let me pop this up here. This is from the Daily Mail. I didn't find the video because I pulled this on a whim. But so whether it's Tina Fey being Sarah Palin, which by the way, I remember that, and she did do a great Sarah Palin. But for anyone to still think or believe that that was real is I mean, I guess in a way that's kind of what you get with a free society. But and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with having simpletons around who aren't going to take the extra second to go and figure out that was actually Tina Fey. But they want to limit our AI and our ability to do deep fakes, but not their own. Because if you're watching, you see the headline that's on the screen. It says, "My White House Mission Impossible: How I, the CIA's disguised division chief, deceived the Secret Service, infiltrated the Oval Office, and shocked the president by peeling off my face." And you might be thinking, what? This article comes from March of 2024, and it's by this woman named Jonah Mendez that she wrote for Daily Mail, and she's out there talking about this. Like, they have this ability already. The CIA already has this ability. What I recall from the video of this, she told, I think this was back in George W. Bush's era, by the way.
H.W. Bush. She's been going around telling the story for a long time.
Yeah, so it's been out here. It's been out there for a while. She gets into the Oval Office and she tells him, like, "Hey, don't freak out," essentially, and then peels off her face mask because she's got, if you've seen the Mission Impossible movies, she's got the fake face that looks real. And it's like, okay, which part of me, like, that's pretty cool, and I'm kind of impressed by that our government does have that ability. But they're going to gaslight you and say, "How dare you? We're gonna try to limit your speech and your ability to do something that's quote unquote fake." but we're gonna live in that realm, and we're gonna do it all the time. And you know, I saw this clip last night actually of President Biden on vacation at a beach, and the commentator was saying how, like, where's the Secret Service? You know, a lot of people are mostly focusing on why is he on vacation again? But the guy was like, "Where's? I mean, this is like a public beach. Like, is this safe?" And he's wearing like a black T-shirt, and he's like, "What 81-year-old man do you know of that's going to sit in the sun in a black T-shirt?" And I was like, "Huh." And that's what kind of made me think of this Jonah Mendez story, and now tie it in with AI and deep fakes and the government saying, "No, no, 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 no. How dare you? We're gonna limit your ability because you can't be trusted because you're just a rube, and just comply and do what we want and do what we say. And oh, also trust us. Trust us to be truthful with you. Give me a break."
That story that she tells is actually really cool because
It
she
is.
has the moment where she's in the office with George H.W. Bush and she says, "Hey, we have this really cool technology. Want to tell you about it? Want to show it to you?" And then he actually does the whole thing like, "Okay, let me see it. Where is it?" And she's like, "I'm wearing it," and then
Yeah.
takes it off, which is a pretty awesome reveal. But that's not new tech. I have to presume that it's only gotten better since
Right.
then.
Yep.
And what why do they have the ability to have that, and we don't have the ability to put Kamala Harris on a chicken? Like it's the same thing as the fuel standards, right? We're all getting pushed into the electric vehicles. I don't see the police departments doing it. Could it be because they want to take away your freedom of movement and not
Right.
limit their own? Just
Hmm.
saying.
Yep.
And then when we talk about more censorship, and we've talked about this item before, but I think it's worth going back into. And this is about Mark Zuckerberg sending that letter off about how they were pressured. And we think it's just worth contributing to the discussion of whether or not this is actually a free country or just allegedly landed free. Zuckerberg saying the Biden administration pressured Meta, which is the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, to censor COVID-19 content, coronavirus content, SARS-2 coronavirus, because language matters, and that is not a racist thing to say. So, in a letter dated August 26th, so a couple weeks ago, Mark Zuckerberg told the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee, who we've spoken with, Garrett, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret we are not more outspoken about it. Oh, wow. Really? He's admitting he's not a suspendable, not willing to do the right thing at the right time, the right way for the right reasons. Thanks, Mark Zuckerberg. How's the jujitsu going?
Yeah. No
I
kidding.
also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Well, because you personally profited from it. And that's why I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg is any sort of a patriot or is interested in doing the right thing. He's interested in doing the convenient thing for him. But this only validates what we all knew to be true. And that is the fact that the federal government censored what people were allowed to say on social media, on the billboard, or the cork board where you would just pin up anything that you want, the public space. The government said, no, you can't do that. And I mean, before I give you a chance to respond, that they're now requiring the hospitals to start reporting how many of their coronavirus admissions are coming in again now. They're starting
Dude,
it. It's
why do you
almost
think?
like the election variant is particularly viral. Do mask up. Wear 12 masks.
Yeah, get your booster. Don't go vote. Don't worry, we'll send you a mail-in ballot. And oh, if we don't, just grab one or two or three or seven out of your neighbors and send those in. Like it just,
Get
you
your
know,
coronavirus tests and your mail-in ballots
yeah,
all ready to
all,
go.
all on the same day. But it's, dude. Okay, I'm trying. I'm gonna reel it in because you said it in the beginning about my meter, and I'm about to blow a freaking gasket about because I
The
I I
chat's here for it. Let her go.
I just at what point do we truly say enough? Enough. Like you pulled these tricks on us before. We're not falling for it again. You mentioned Russia earlier. That's another piece of this puzzle. How many How many press releases or news conferences or whatever else have we seen just this week? Just this week with Russia. We had the tenant media thing with Tim Pool and Benny Johnson and Laura Chang, or I don't know,
Laura Chen.
Laura Chen and others, Russia, Russia, Russia. And we had some faux indictments on Russians, like the people. I think I saw this, of course, probably from you on Twitter, because you do the best job of anybody out there mocking the FBI and their ridiculous indictments of people. You have these Russians who have I think it said, maintain a home in Virginia that they're not at because they're in Russia.
Because they're in Russia, yeah.
And
A
there's
bunch
been
of
more.
GRU people that were doing cyber hacking of Ukraine. I don't know, from Russia. So they
Right.
were committing a cyber crime against another country from another country. I don't know what American law that violates, and they're
Exactly.
certainly not gonna be extraditable back to the United States to face American justice. So
Yeah.
why are you wasting the time? Oh, you just want the headline
Right.
to set
So
the narrative here. And
yep.
and look, even along with this, Mark Zuckerberg, it's a two-part thing. There was a response from our uh, overlords at the White House. They actually issued this response. This comes from the Blaze. The White House defends its censoring of Facebook content to protect public health. Public health is going to be the thing they fall back on. We don't need guns. It's a public health crisis.
Yep.
I have a story we're going to talk about soon, Garrett, that says that parenting is a public health crisis. We're going to have to get to that another day. But when confronted with a deadly pandemic, this administration encouraged responsible actions to protect public health and safety. I don't think Karine Jean-Pierre wrote this, but she'll
Yeah.
probably take credit. Our position has been clear and consistent. We believe tech companies and other private actors should take into account the effects of their actions have on the American people while making independent choices about the information they present. So it's up to them to make the decisions, but we think that they should make the decisions that we tell them to make. And if they don't, we'll just sue them out of existence or maybe indict them for something or another. This is absolutely freedom, right? No pressure at all in the private industry.
Yeah. No kid. I mean, dude, it just
Do
it
not believe your lying eyes. We're just going to censor. And yeah, we did it. We had to do it for public health, but it was up to them to do what we told them to do.
of
But we have all
course.
the guns.
Yeah. And it's I mean, dude, it's seriously, it's the simple example is the officer who walks up to somebody on the street immediately to intimidate. And then it's, am I being detained? And the officer's not answering, not providing their name and badge number. And it's like, dude, back up, and it's like, yeah, you are utilizing your authority in an abusive manner. And that's the problem. Whether you're doing a consensual interaction or not, it's, well, and we learned this in the Twitter files too, like the censorship industrial complex. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know, maybe I've seen people on the internet saying, well, once you start jujitsu, then everything changes.
Yeah,
And
he's got a beard now and he does jujitsu. Whatever,
yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Whatever.
Eh,
I don't have any fear of Mark Zuckerberg physically. I
no,
don't think that he's an objective force for good. He hasn't been red pilled. He's just looking at his bottom line and realizing, ooh, I don't
and
know about long term if Facebook's gonna be a thing since it's basically used by people who are at the tail end of their lives now. Mostly, it's
right.
not really for the youngins.
Yeah, like think of that. Think of that that arc. It started with just college students and now it's just like boomers.
All right,
And
can we just entertain this for a minute? Do you remember that when you had to have a .edu
yep,
email
I
to
remember.
open a Facebook account? And I remember a college roommate when we were going into sophomore year, he went abroad and we were chatting and I was, checking it. Hey man, I think he went to London. I said, how's it going? And he was at an internet cafe and he goes, hey, you got to check this website out. And his comment was, and because he was my friend, and he said, because we need the internet to tell us who our friends are. It was pretty prophetic.
Yeah, I mean that really is. But I think you're absolutely right about this. Is that's what Zuckerberg is thinking about. And he's probably looking back and thinking like, "Oh crap, could I get in trouble for this?" Maybe he's aware of like a Missouri v. Biden, even though, well, that's a whole nother topic about the monstrosity of an awful decision that gets handed down in some of these cases where it's like, well, you're right there. We're right there. We're on the brink. It's going well. And then SCOTUS steps in and says, actually, we hate your freedom too, you rube. Go back to being a peasant. And but also with this Facebook Zuckerberg stuff, the censorship is still going on. Like it, I've seen since he came out with the and people, oh, is Mark Zuckerberg, has he been red pilled? No. He doesn't care about what you think or say, and he doesn't want to promote it any more than the government does. And he's only doing this because he's looking back and saying, I don't want to get in hot water over this, and the whole goal of Facebook is to make money. I have shareholders now. And so that's the play. That's the angle. But you mentioned satire as part of it. So where am I headed right away? MTSU's First Amendment Center. And it says satire is implicitly protected by the free expression clause of the First Amendment. Nevertheless, it frequently has come under legal attack. Of course, of course, of course, of course, it is protected. Like it's so beyond frustrating.
It's
Like
a political cartoon in a newspaper.
yeah, and
That's
like
what satire is. That is actually, I mean, I guess it's appropriate. That is literal satire because there is writing in it. The appropriate use of the word literal, which I'm loath to use.
as you should be, because literally, Steve, like we're literally talking about your freedom, literally.
Up talk and slow burn,
Oh, the
like combo.
vocal fry. Um, but so Facebook, they're a private company. They can shut your account down and good luck. They can't violate your rights. We talked about this before too. The government can violate your rights. Okay, so what about when the government goes to a private entity that you will violate somebody's rights? That's the government doing that.
Deputizing the private sector.
Right.
They then become a state actor at that point.
Right.
If
It's
the FBI goes to Facebook and gives them a directive, even if it's, well, it's just a suggestion, but hint, hint, you better do this. And we also have a bunch of our people who used to work for us and now they work for you, so they're friendlies. They've effectively done the deputization that the sheriff says, I hereby deputize you. You're working for me, and they're doing the work of the state, and they're putting the label of it. Oh, it's just private industry. They're just aren't you a libertarian on this? Don't you believe in free enterprise? Businesses are people too. They can do what they want in the free market, not if they're doing the actions at the behest of the government, which they're doing here as pertain to even just jokes about coronavirus.
right. And that's another piece. So there you pulled up the one where they're talking about public health. Okay, that's government. That's do your best. That's not really your role. Like I, I need to take care of my health,
The public
not
health
you.
clause of the Constitution.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
remember
Show
that?
me.
It's a subsection of the good and plenty clause.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like in Article 79.
Six
Um,
hundred and sixty-six.
even better. But I- it gets me so worked up and so frustrated because it doesn't take a First Amendment scholar to understand these simple pieces of your constitutional rights. It really doesn't, and I remember during peak COVID, dealing with FBI colleagues who were cowards, quite frankly, and a couple times they would ask me. I remember talking to the president of the FBI AA. That's the FBI Agents Association for those of you not in the know. And it functions not quite like a union, but you pay dues. It's an outside entity. And quite frankly, they're a joke and a fraud and a sham. And I was very happy to rescind my monthly fees when I realized how much of a crock they were. But the president calls me up and he's like, "Hey, why are you, rescinding your membership?" And I told him, because you guys are political hacks and you're not doing anything to take care of agents who I have a very deep concern about this vaccine mandate. And he's like, "This is all I've been dealing with." And this was like probably late September, early October of 2022. And I end up telling him, I'm like rattling off stuff I had been working on at the time, like from a legal perspective. I was an FBI agent. Let's not forget, like, kind of have an idea of how this stuff works, the law, and how to understand case law and all that. And I'm telling him this stuff. I'm sending him an email, and he's like looking, and he's like, "Are you a lawyer? Were you a lawyer before?" And I was like, "What does that matter?" Like I don't get that question. Like, well, are you a lawyer? What is who cares? You don't have to be a lawyer to be able to understand how the law works, or how your constitutional rights are implemented in your life. You don't have to be a cop, you don't have to be a lawyer. Anybody can learn how to do how these things work.
The appeal to authority is the weakest argument, and it was what worked during coronavirus by and large. "Oh, are you a scientist? Well, are you a doctor?" "Well, yes, I am a doctor." "Well, are you an epidemiologist?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was always the fallback to that. I can read, and I have a little bit of, gray matter between my ears and realize how stupid it is for you to tell me that I should put a diaper on my face to protect other people when I sneeze and it comes out of my mouth at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most asinine thing, and people just said, "Well, I guess they know they wear a white lab coat, so, I'm not a doctor," but the truth of the matter is, we all grew up in school, and we saw the idiots in class, and they were eating paste, and then we saw the grown-ups, and we thought, "Wow, they have a car, and they have a house, they probably got their bleep together," and then we grew up, and the idiots who are eating paste have a car and they have a house and they have a job. They didn't
Yeah.
get any smarter. That's what you learn. That's the unfortunate part of becoming an adult is that you learn that most people are idiots, including those that have a stethoscope and a white lab coat, or people that say, "I'm from the government." And are you even a lawyer? How dare you
Yeah.
question my authority?
Especially those, the paste eaters, they have a tinge of smartness and they realize, government work, not so
Mhm.
bad because you don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to know a whole
They
lot. You
don't
don't,
expect results.
yeah, like you just show up and get paid. That sounds great. And so, and then if they have an extra bit of evilness in their hearts, as well, quite frankly all humans do, but they say, man, this government gig is really not so bad. I'd sure like to be in charge of people. And then you get people like a governor Tim Walls, AWols, Tim AWols, who lies through his teeth about pretty much everything. I saw a video, and here's where we go right back to AI and deepfakes. It looked like him. Somebody said it was him dressed in drag and dancing, and I was like, I'm not gonna retweet this because I don't know for sure if that's him, but it sure looks like him. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying the dude dresses in drag. Maybe he does. I am telling you he lies because I've looked into the military aspect, and that's a typical politician. That's a typical government employee trying to rise through the ranks and seize more control and seize you by the throat and your rights by the throat and say, "I'm here to censor your speech because I don't like it. I don't like Comrade Kamala, riding on a vulture or, or whatever you want to do, or in our case, burning the Constitution." And our thumbnail
How dare
today,
you? That's actual footage. We've seen that. She did
yeah,
that.
yes, it's real. It's not a deep fake. And like I just it's very frustrating to me because we have this idea of America, and this isn't it. Like I always thought we are the land of the free. It's great. Our government, yeah, they've got their problems, and our nation has its problems, but overall, we're great. And it's like, actually, we're not. And this goes back decades, decades and decades and decades. The other day, maybe this was yesterday too. I don't know. It seems to all kind of run together. The
Every
FBI.
day is Monday when you're suspended
That's
as a
right, that's
whistleblower.
right. Um, the FBI tweeted out about how it's like a national read a book day, which again, the comments on that were great because they're like, "Get back to work. Don't you have child traffickers to catch?" And it's like, well, yeah, they do, but they're not gonna because, they care about the grandma behind the velvet rope on January 6th more. And I retweeted it with a picture of a book that was written by Randy Weaver and his daughter, and it's like this was in the early 90s, and I think 1992 when Ruby Ridge happened. Is that, I don't know, something right around there. And it goes back even further. I think we've talked about it before. Like it goes back to like 1910 with communism. It was the communism scare, and guess what? It was Russia, Russia, Russia back then too. And it goes back to the 1930s or late 30s, mid to late 30s and 40s with or early 40s with Japan and internment camps in our own nation. Who was doing the rounding up? FBI. Like it's been corrupt and vile and wicked from the beginning. And like a lot of this stuff, like I didn't know. I wanted to be Fox Mulder, and then you get suspended and you think like, man, this place, I've heard rumors and I've seen some things that I didn't quite think were okay. And then, you got a little bit of extra time on your hands when you're suspended indefinitely forever without pay. And you end up giving yourself history lessons on some of this stuff. And it's like, it sure seems like the FBI and the government writ large has done a lot more evil things than good things, but they just tell us they do good things. And then I guess we go back to our gaslighting episode.
Then I want to get to that, repeating the same thing over and over again before we get to our next story. But before we even get to that, let's thank today's sponsor, which is going to be the M-Clip Company. You can go to m-clip.com, m-clip.com. And when you do, you can use our promo code, which is suspendable, and that'll get you 10% off. These are money clips. They're luxury goods. They will not break the bank. They're an excellent gift. Just get one for yourself, test it out, and then it will be a great lean on gift, when it's like the last minute and you can't remember somebody's birthday until the week of, and then you're like, oh man, what am I going to do? Well, anybody could do these. This is addition by subtraction. It makes your life way better. You wouldn't think that until you give it a try. I encourage you all to do that. Go to m-clip.com. It's a American-owned company, been around for a couple of decades. Even if you mess up their technology, which is patented, they will fix it for you. And they are also offering the suspendable merch, so you can get that to support us as well. Support M-Clip Company, support the suspendables. Go to m-clip.com and use the promo code suspendable to get 10% off.
Just yesterday, I cracked out my M clip, and every time I crack it out and like slide it back, I'm like, this thing is sweet. It sure beats my paper clip that I've used for, I don't know, 18 years.
I never got complimented on my wallet, but I do get complimented on my M-Clip, which is great.
Yeah.
So before the next story, because we actually are connected to the victims of this, so I think we should probably bring it up. Talking about the repetition of language, and in the Friend household, we worked our way through the Rocky movies. Finally, we got through them all, including Rocky V, which there's a reason why there's a Rocky 6. Rocky 4 is the GOAT, is what I always reference, because that the end of the Cold War, right? In my mind, when he knocks out Ivan Drago,
Russia
the wall
again.
fell, right?
Yep.
But throughout that fight, his coach continues to say, no pain, no pain, no pain. And he gets him saying it. And my son was like, why are they doing it? I said, because that words have power. If you say that enough times, you can convince yourself that you're not feeling pain. I've done that training for an ultra marathon, repeated the same mantra over and over again to make the pain go away. And I'm talking about that because we are told on a nonstop basis that we're free. This is the land of the free, home of the brave. Land of the free, home of the brave. I don't see a whole bunch of brave people. And I don't think we're that free, but we've been told enough times, that we've repeated enough times, and we stand up and they do the flyover at the sporting event and they do the national anthem, and it's just a repetition of that message. Now, we might be the most free on earth, but just because you're the skinniest kid at fat camp, doesn't mean you're skinny. Having the best convenience store sushi in Southern Alabama doesn't make it good sushi. And so let's keep that in mind when we go to this one. It shows it's not just one side under attack. It's all sides under attack. And the individual that brought this to the forefront, I knew about actually a while ago. He said he was working on it. And finally, they came down with the lawsuit. And this is Empower Oversight, who's done some legal protection for myself, for Garrett, for Marcus Allen, for the IRS whistleblowers, for the Secret Service whistleblowers. They're out there doing it. It's a nonpartisan organization. And Jason Foster runs it. He was my attorney, my first attorney that I had. And he found out that he was under surveillance by the Department of Justice because he wasn't always running Empower Oversight. He used to work up on the Hill. He worked for Senator Grassley. And that's why whistleblowing is a passion project for him. But this lawsuit now has come out from Empower Oversight, said October 19th, 2023. So like I told you, I've known about it for a little while now. Jason Foster received a notification that DOJ had served a subpoena on Google in 2017 for records of a Google email address and 2 Google voice telephone numbers connected to his family's telephones and his official work phone for the U.S. Senate. At the time, in 2017, he was the chief investigative counsel to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee because he worked for Grassley. And he was responsible for directing congressional oversight and investigations into waste, fraud, and abuse and misconduct at the DOJ. Although Google received the subpoena in 2017, it was unable to notify Foster about the subpoenas until 2023 because the DOJ had sought and received several NDOs related to the subpoena. So non-disclosure order, that's what NDO means. And after receiving the notice from Google, Jason learned that several of the other accounts listed in the subpoena belonged to other staffers, both Republican and Democrat, for the U.S. House and Senate committees, all engaged of oversight of the Department of Justice.
I remember when he first told me about this because he told me probably around the same time he told you, and I was like, "What?" Like even amidst the suspension and all the things, uh, including even the FBI's subpoenaing of my wife's Apple ID and who knows what else.
2017, Jason Foster didn't know us. We didn't know Jason Foster, didn't
Nope.
know who he was or any idea he existed.
Yep. And then he finds out in 2023, 5 years, like or six, five, I think something right around there, 5.5, 6 years, because the DOJ got NDOs. This is going to take it goes back to what Steve was talking about with freedom. This is going to take everyone stop. You have to stop being a coward, is what it boils down to. The people at Google, the people at the FBI and the DOJ, and excuse my language, I'm gonna drop it though. This shit is wrong. You know it. Innately, you know it. And you do it anyways because what? Well, I work for Google, or I work for the FBI, or I work for DOJ. Irrelevant. You have to do what is right. And then what? You're going to wave your flag? You're going to wave your flag at the Memorial Day parade and the 4th of July parade and say, "Oh yeah, we're the land of the free. Go ahead, kids, collect the candy that people are throwing at you."
Oh, and they're signing up for GovX to get their discounts because they're a
Oh
public
yeah.
servant, right?
Right. And it seriously it always goes back to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. Right there on the wall when you walk in, they've got the poem from Martin Niemöller, who I think he ended up being martyred too. I'd have to double check. I know Bonhoeffer was. I don't know for sure if Niemöller was, but it's the poem where he says at the end, he says, "And then they came for me, and no one was left to speak out." That is, you're living it. You are living it. And, God bless the guys at Empower. But the government spying, and look, I'm not even saying that people in government can't break the law. Of course, we had that staffer committing sodomy in a Senate chamber. Nothing happened to
That one
him.
disappeared pretty quick, didn't it?
Sure
Huh.
did.
Huh.
Sure did. Because sodomites run the hill, and that's a whole nother story. But I guess it's Saturday. But you know, Jason and Tristan, I've been talking to them more than normal this week, and they're busy and they're small. They're a small shop and they've got a real passion for it. But then on top of it, they're getting retaliated against. Like, what was a staff attorney like Jason Foster? Why was the government spying on him? And by the way, it wasn't just him. It was other staffers on the Hill. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't just Republicans. It was Democrats too. The government. This is what happens in a country that has the secret police, the Stasi. We've talked about some of them in the past. That's what this is. A government does not spy on its own people without just cause. And people might be, well, maybe they did have just cause. Then
For
why isn't
6
he right?
for
And why
6 years.
why isn't he in handcuffs then? Why
Mhm.
isn't he in front of a judge for some crime? Because the government should not be spying on anybody in its own country without true just cause.
And
Like,
and there's a separation of powers issue here because he worked
that's
for
right.
the
Yeah.
legislative branch and the Department of Justice is under the executive branch. One branch investigating another branch behind closed doors. It should be transparent out in the open. They should have at least sought some sort of permission from the Senate Majority Leader or the House Majority Leader. It should have been in the know. There should have been a collaboration, and that didn't happen here. And I'm sorry, I'm a cynic. That's 2017, so it's the first year of the Trump administration. So we've talked about before, it's not the deep state, it's the administrative state.
Right.
Politicians come and go, but the administrative state is here to stay. And that's when they really pulled the masks off. That's when they fully went weaponized and said, look, we could be in jeopardy here. There's the threat, and I don't think that Donald Trump was necessarily the force that was going to drain the swamp. Or at least it didn't wind up working out that way, that it was as advertised. Maybe that was because there were some hurdles in his way. Maybe it was because he just didn't have an appetite for it. I don't know the man. But when he rolled in, there was a lot of fear that he was going to do that. And they said, we have to close ranks, circle the wagons, lock shields, and we're going to have to go after anyone who's going to have oversight of us, because this is our turf. And if they dare to try to conduct proper congressional constitutional oversight mandated by our rule of law, then we're going to try to put them in prison.
Right. Like, I mean, think of that. That is secret police. That's it right there. And you're not just going after your perceived political enemies. You're going after anybody who's going to get in your way. And that's how they look at it: is you will not get in my way. And I'm the one with the gun. You will not get in my way. I will do anything, and you, good luck stopping it. And then look at this too. It's 2024 now. They've finally got the lawsuit. So what? The damage is done. It said not just his work phone, but also family members. I mean, similar.
He sounds a lot like what happened in the O'Boyle household,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
you could could have been using your wife's phone. Okay, well, they actually went after his work phone. Uh, we've learned that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's work phones were accessible, and that they were not actually in their personal property, that belonged to the government. The government, they had no expectation of privacy there,
None.
unless they are good and faithful servants, which is why they both got $1 million for
Yep.
sending heart emojis to each other and arranging for their hookups in the backseat of a car, because Pete Strzok was too cheap to rent out a motel room.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to
I
get
digress.
sidetracked.
I know, like I want to seize on that and just throttle it.
All
One
right.
piece on that too. He still has his employment lawsuit going, so he's trying to fight his firing, and it's like, oh, that'll be curious to see how that turns out. Meanwhile, he's an analyst on CNN. I'm sure he's well taken care of, because that's what they do on the left. They take care of each other. Even your tax dollars, you're funding your own demise, because, like Steve said, they both got $1 million out of the deal for being adulterous subversives. I mean, that's what a government subversive is. They were texting to each other about extra plans they had to ensure that Donald Trump couldn't be in place. And these are the people who are at the top of the food chain on the freaking Russia scam. Like, dude,
I'm reading those text messages, and again, this is little slight deviation. We do have one more story I want to get to. You think immediately, like, who are you, bro? Like, imagine the hubris, and then you were like, oh wait, he did have the ability to do that.
Yep.
There are people who have an inordinate amount of power, and they are proven themselves. They've been weighed and measured and found wanting, that they cannot wield that. They cannot have the ring of power, because immediately they use it for their own political biases, and they feel just fine doing it and saying it out in the open, not unapologetically. And there's been no accountability, which is why they feel that way. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page belong in federal prison for that. They tried to disenfranchise 350 million Americans out of their duly elected president. And again, I didn't vote for the guy, but I know what's right and what's wrong. He won the Electoral College. He won the election in 2016. And the FBI mucky mucks within the administrative state said, no, we're going to do what we can to stop that from happening. And those rubes, these Americans, they actually pushed it on through. Well, then we're just going to wage war internally against our own president to try to take down his administration or hinder it to a point where then he can't do anything to push forward an agenda. And we certainly don't want him doing any oversight of what we're doing, which is why we're going to look at any of his allies or even opponents within the legislative branch and go after them if they attempt to do their jobs.
Yep. It's, yeah. I mean, I won't even jump on it, because we could just keep going on this. We could just keep pulling this thread for another hour.
So we set up the premise for, is this allegedly Leonard Free, with that brownstone piece. There's some background of what's going on now. I think we're kind of making the case that that's just an empty statement, a vapid phrase that we use at the end of a song. And I want to look a little bit over the horizon and tie it to the thumbnail that we have today, which, thank you, Grok, for helping us generate that one. And this is comes from Real Clear Politics, which, I mean, they kind of bring all different perspectives. So you can't even say, oh, this is a liberal rag or a right leaning source, whatever you want to call it. This one, though, says that the election is a referendum on free speech. It's a commentary from Kenan Spivak, who, I don't know, maybe gets money from Russia. I don't know. I still think he makes some fair points here. Talks about some of the players here that are involved and then some of the policies that we're seeing proposed. Barack Obama told a Stanford University conference that government controls must be imposed to stop so-called disinformation. Kamala Harris announced a White House task force to block disinformation involving women's issues. Like crisis pregnancy centers saying that if you take this hormone, you might be able to reverse the murder of your baby. Tim Awals told MSNBC, quote, there's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, unquote. Hey, Timmy, that's 180 degrees incorrect. And then we talked about the Murthy v. Missouri decision, where, thank you very much, Supreme Court Justice Amy Barrett, for rendering this decision that said that the DOJ and the FBI can actually collude with social media companies to censor speech. Quote, a broad pressure campaign designed to coerce social media companies into suppressing speakers, viewpoints, and content disfavored by the government is really what it is. And that comes from, who is this from? Free speech by working with it's a U.S. District Court judge, Terry Dougherty, who said that. But in Murthy v. Missouri, they still said that the government can work with social media because there's foreign malign influence at play.
Of course.
And that's up to them actually to determine what is foreign malign influence. So trust us, bro. We'll just the facts here.
Yeah.
Since the court's ruling in Murthy, the DOJ recycled the same justification of malign foreign influence it used in defending Murthy to again authorize DOJ collaboration with social media platforms to suppress disfavored postings. And White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre asserted that social media companies have a, quote, responsibility to stop disinformation and misinformation. So just do what we tell you to do. And when you do that, it's of your own accord, of course.
Of course. And dude, this is an exercise in restraint for me today because I think I could have been ranting and raving El Rushbo style, may he rest in peace, like the whole time. And maybe actually this wasn't an exercise in restraint because maybe I've ranted and raved too much. But this, it seriously, it actually makes me want to weep for my nation on top of it too. Like anger, weeping, gnashing of teeth. That I guess that's where we're at. You've got a presidential candidate and current vice president, who's a lawyer, by the way. She's got a lawyer
She was a
background.
prosecutor, don't you know?
Right. So don't you think she would understand people's civil rights, especially because she's a woman and a woman of color? So wouldn't those things matter to her? Wouldn't you think they would? But no, they don't. And now you have the governor of Minnesota who's running for vice president. And when I hear these things, like, because I was kind of going down this rabbit hole of some of their comments yesterday, and initially I was like, oh, that's just a complete misunderstanding of the First Amendment. And then I was like, wait a second. No, it isn't. It's an intentional and deliberate warping of the First Amendment because they want to fundamentally change what the First Amendment is, and they want to fundamentally change what America is. And that's not, I don't think that's even being hyperbolic or tongue in cheek. That didn't Barack Obama say that he wanted to fundamentally change?
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
So, I mean, look back to 2008 and to now. America is fundamentally changed, and we're on a crash course for it to get even worse, especially when you have the top politicians in the nation, the leading and you know what? This is not a bipartisan issue, Steve. I mentioned it the other day. Donald Trump himself said he wants to create a law that's going to make it illegal to burn the American flag. Again, a misunderstanding of the First Amendment at its best, or a deliberate warping of the First Amendment on purpose. Neither are good. You wanting to prohibit someone from burning the American flag, or you saying we need to control what we deem disinformation or misinformation on social media. Both of those are wrong and evil and a warped understanding. I would say I lean towards being a deliberate misunderstanding of the First Amendment because they want to change. They want to change it. They want to change what you're allowed to do and what you're allowed to say. And here's some of the proof. Comrade Kamala, in her own words. Oh wait, it's muted. Hang on. Stand by. Stand by.
Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community. And we'll.
Okay, so there's a number of things in that clip.
There's a lot of projection in that clip.
Yeah. One, she says they're going to what? Double the Civil Rights Division? Oh, so there you go with your twisting of language. You're going to call it civil rights, but you're actually going to use it to do what? To violate people's civil rights. Because guess what, comrade? It's not illegal for a company or an individual to lie. It's not illegal for them to hate and to even voice that hate. And you cannot go and say, no, 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 knock it off, as Chris Ray said earlier this week about
And
Russia, Russia.
apparently it's not illegal to lie when you're being approved by the Senate, as Kristen Clark, head of the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, did when she said she'd never been arrested when she chopped up her husband with a kitchen knife.
Yeah. Okay, dude. Another perfect example because where's her perjury charges, you know? But then you have somebody like GOB Actual over here who literally told the truth. Literally.
You did write it down. Yep, that's accurate.
True. And then I get referred for perjury based off of a different lying person's perjured testimony. Like the system is warped. It's completely warped. And they want it that way. They you hear about the two-tiered justice system. Well, what is that, Steve? If you go and try to chop up your husband with a kitchen knife and then you say, "Oh, no, we don't get into domestics and please just confirm me. I'm swearing to tell the truth." And that's fine. That's just usher her in. That's just government. That's just politics. And it goes back to cowardice too, because that should be a bipartisan issue as well. People on the left and the right should say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You can't come in here and lie to us about, and then expect a confirmation and expect no punishment."
I presume that at least one person, maybe a couple, had a lot of problems with Kristen Clark lying to them and said, we should probably do something about it. It's not going to go anywhere, but we should at least make this very public and refer her over for some sort of charges. And how many people sat in that room and said, this isn't the hill to die on?
Right. And
Utter cowards.
Yep. Cowards. I mean, as much as I want to go there, I'm jumping back to Comrade because why does she talk like that? Why does she always change her voice? Like, you don't talk like that, lady. We've heard you talk for over 4 years because you tried to run for president last time. That didn't work out so well. And now all of a sudden you're the darling of the left. But why do you change the way you sound? Like, I don't change my voice unless I'm trying to be funny, like talking to my daughters or doing my Arnold or something. But I don't get up on stage and like, I don't know. It's a heavy German population here, so I don't get up on stage if I'm speaking in Wisconsin and do my Arnold voice because it sounds more German. Like even that piece, you're a liar. That's
There's
just
no
lying.
authenticity at all. And that's one of the number one cues is the way people change the way that they speak, or even just particular words. Again, we're going to get sidetracked on this, but when they try to put the accent on a location or a name, it's so inauthentic. And I just think of like, do you think if the French premier or president or whatever comes over here and he has like his big French accent with it when he's trying to speak English, right? And we would have an understanding of that. And
Yeah.
he was like, I really enjoy my time in the Americas. I very much like your French fries at Burger King. And then when we'd be like, oh, we nailed that. He's great. We love him. It's so inauthentic and we
Mhm.
can't stand it. And they just don't have any expectation they're ever going to be called out at, other than, I guess on social media. And maybe it does work because they have proof of concept. They've not lost elections over it. No, I don't think there's ever been any history of someone saying like, well, you sounded really phony, so you lost the election. Maybe that would be the best takeaway. If we had an election with a consequence where the politician went up there and was like, you're fake.
You're fake. Yeah. For real. Speaking of French, here we go again. I was able to find it instantly thanks to the internet. Here's Comrade Kamala again. Have you heard this one?
With us in government, we campaign with the plan. Uppercase T, uppercase P, the plan. And then the environment is such that we're expected to defend the plan. Even when the first time we roll it out, there may be some glitches and it's time to reevaluate and then do it again.
Like
With
what?
us in government?
I mean, seriously.
Steve Friend, off the top of his head, came up with a better French accent.
Like, I mean, what is wrong with that woman? And she's gonna get 85 million votes. I mean,
It'll be the safest and most secure election we've ever had in history.
yeah, it's crazy, dude.
So
It's just crazy.
the ultimate question is that we tried to bring up, is this a country of the free or allegedly free? And I think that this is a pretty strong case that we're not at a point where we're advertised to be, and we've been told ad nauseum that we actually are. And it's going to be incumbent on people just clawing it back. It's really back to that Reagan, that freedom is only one generation away from being lost. And I think we might actually be in that Esther 4:14,
Yeah.
born for such a time as this. We're going to have to claw this back ourselves.
Uh-huh.
But I might have actually intruded on your territory. I want to make sure that we get your perspective here before we have a palate cleanse for the day.
Yeah, not at all. I'm always open for extra, and our mutual adoration for Esther 4 is always welcomed here. But you mentioned it earlier, how we have been the royal we have been found wanting, and I immediately thought of Daniel 5 and the handwriting on the wall. And I know I've covered this before. It's been a while, so maybe many of you have forgotten, and I won't go through the whole story, but basically you had King Nebuchadnezzar, who was filled with pride and historically just a brutal dictator. And eventually he turns to God and realizes it. I've covered this too in Daniel chapter 4, where he's like basically kind of turns his life and his kingdom around. Well, then his son becomes a king. His son is a guy named Belshazzar, and he's filled with this typical government type of hubris. And as we'll see, um, it says so. He basically they were having a festival, essentially a drunken orgy fest, and some handwriting appeared on the wall and nobody could decipher it. And somebody in the king's court remembered that, I think it was his queen remembered that this guy Daniel was able to interpret dreams back in Belshazzar's dad's era, Nebuchadnezzar. And they went and fetched him and brought him in and asked him to if he could tell him what it meant. And this is what happened, starting in Daniel 5:22. And you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart. There we go. Look at that right there. Right off the bat, we have what? Pride, hubris. What we talk about all the time. We just were talking about it with Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, but it's permeated throughout government. It seems especially throughout government for some reason. But it says, you have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven. And the vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know, but the God in whose hands is your breath, and whose are all your ways you have not honored. And I'm going to pause there real quick. What are our gods today? Government, science, atheism, LGBTQ plus. It's it and even silver and gold too, because people still worship things that they think have value. But continuing, Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed, many, many, tekel and parson. This is the interpretation of the matter. Many. God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Paris, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. And I will stop there. But it's that piece. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. And later on, it talks about how that night, that very night, the kingdom was sacked and overrun. I think we're there. I mean, if not, we are right there. We're very close because it doesn't take two suspended forever FBI guys, former FBI guys, to tell you how bad it is in government. Like, you can see it. You can pull up the clip of Comrade Kamala putting on a fake French accent because French people are around.
It's just the plan. It's just the plan.
The plan, capital T, the plan. It's just oozing with well, one, it's oozing with stupidity, but it's oozing with pride. And when our top echelons of government, and not even top, I mean, we saw it at the normal, regular agent level, just filled with this pride. That's you are going to be found wanting, and you're going to be balanced and measured. And good luck. I mean, seriously, good luck with that, because it's going to come to an end. God's grace will run out, and your kingdom will be overrun. Like, we're living it. We're seeing it. You don't get a Joe Biden as your king. I mean, that's what a president is. It's a modern day form of a king. You don't get a Joe Biden as your king if your nation is not being measured as we speak.
And you don't need to suspended indefinitely forever FBI agents to tell you that maybe we're not as free. You can actually go to your local community and experience it yourself, which is today's palate cleanse, which I'm not a country music fan. I do know the name of the band, Florida Georgia Line. I think this is a take on them. Maybe Garrett, you're a country guy, or maybe at least your wife is. This is some local despotism that you would experience if you were trying to build a house.
Honey, I found our dream lot. I mean, peasants built houses 100 years ago. It can't cost that much. Excuse me, sir. You need the lot bigger. You need this log thicker. You need to pay a really pricey licensed pipe fitter. Well, that doesn't seem so bad. I could always make it a duplex. That would help pay for. You can't put floors on it or put more doors on it. You need a sweaty dude to inspect on all fours on it. I've got buyer's remorse on it. It's that permit approval the county is stuck on, that each minute passing you're spending a buck on, the constant code changes they're running amok on, the traffic studies you're stuck on. It's a roof that you must insure's ready for solar, the toilet you're using, the flushing is low flow, it's front, rear and side setback standards that leave your life sparse. Makes it hard to build a 10% down white picket fence house on this dirt. But if I scrimp and save, I just might be able to pay for a soul study. You need to check for mummies. Will we be done in 10 months? Maybe if you get lucky. It's just a few $1,000s more. I have no money. This is probably not the best time to mention the windows you need to ensure are efficient, the fees for inspections and permits you're given, the chargers for spots for cars with low emissions. My bill and anger have risen. It's the laws that require material use and the costs that accrue for specialized disposing this part of the land to the government you must reverse. Honey, we're renting. Makes it hard to build a 10% down white picket fence house on this dirt. How long does it take to build in China? Oh, it'd be built by now. In communist China. And torn down.
It's
the musical stylings of Remy are always appreciated.
It's funny, but it's also like very sad because it's true. You know, if you've ever dealt with any level of government and oh man, building permits and all, especially with trying to build a house, like, dude, good luck with all that. And land of the free though, right? Right, Steve? Allegedly
the land of the free, but we are definitely the American Radicals podcast. There's nothing alleged about that, and hopefully the information we bring to you was appreciated today. So that's going to do it for today's edition, the Saturday edition, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. We know you liked us to go a little bit long. We hope that that was appropriate and appreciated. So if you haven't already, do smash the thumbs up and follow the channel and subscribe if you are listening to us on the podcast formats, because that'll help us trick their algorithms into spreading it around to more people. And we will be back with you Tuesday, 0830 on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. And until then, guys, have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.